So first we'll set up our smears here, and for this one it's going to be different from the previous one because here we want to make sure we get all of the cultures on the same slide. I'm going to pass it briefly through the flame to burn off any of those extra fibers, and this time I'm going to make 3 little loopfuls of liquid there because I'm going to put gram positive, gram negative, and my unknown onto the same slide here. So for this, I'm just going to take a little bit of our Staph aureus culture and aseptically do the transfer by getting some of the cells off of the surface of your slant again, flaming the lip of the tube before and after, and then coming in here, and what I like to do is make this asymmetrical. If you want to, you can actually make your smear in the shape of a little plus sign so that you always know where your positive control is for this. So I'm just smearing my cells around in that little loop full of water. Flame the loop and cool it off, and then we will get some cells from our negative control. The reason for including the positive and negative controls is if they don't work, if your positive doesn't come out purple and your negative doesn't come out pink, you cannot trust the results for your unknown and you would want to repeat the experiment. So we'll get a little bit of our E. coli cells here. And if you want to, you can make a negative on that, or you can just do a big smear on this because we know where the left side of our slide is with our positive control, our staph right there. So I'm just going to continue to smear those cells around, flame off this little thing, and now I can take my plate, and remember, the less your plate is open, the less likely contaminants are to land on it. So I'm going to open this up and just touch the side of that colony and get a little bit of cells. It's probably even too much right there. And I'm going to smear those right in the center. And I've made some pretty big smears here. And I'll flame that loop, and we're done with our culture right now. Now we wait for the smears to dry. We use a loop full of water rather than a drop of water because that loop full is going to dry much quicker. So here we can see the 3 smears up close. The one on the left side there is my positive control with the little plus, and you can see the negative control on the right is starting to dry, and then the last one that I put on there, my unknown, is starting to dry around the edges. So we're just going to let this sit and finish drying out. So now that my cell smears have finished drying off, I'm going to just take them and pass my slide through the flame 1, 2, 3 times to heat fix those cells so that they will actually adhere to the slide there. For the gram stain itself, we take these little guys here, and the top on this thing is just going to open up by pushing that to the side, and we're going to take our slide over the sink here and just flood the slide with your crystal violet. Your crystal violet is your basic dye, and it's going to be sticking directly to the cells, and we'll let that sit in here for 1 minute. So while that was incubating, I went ahead and got a plastic clothespin here, and I can use this just to hold my slide, tip it off to the side, and once you start the gram stain, you want to continue throughout the process and you don't stop. And we're going to get rid of the excess stain that is on the slide by rinsing it with a little bit of water here. So you can fill a beaker, or if you want to, you can get some of your water coming out of your sink. The one thing I will point out is if you turn your water on too low with our sinks, it'll rinse off, and you need to be careful that you don't have your slide get rinsed off into your sink there. So rinse off that excess dye, and then we're going to come in with our second solution, our grams iodine, and we'll flood the slide again with this solution. The iodine is the mordant, and that's going to build up crystal violet iodine crystals in the cell wall layer here. So we'll let this sit for another minute. After that 1 minute incubation with your iodine, you can pour off the extra, and this is where we get to the most important part of the procedure, and that is where we are using our decolorizer. And what I like to do with this is just hold my slide at an angle and drip the decolorizer onto the slide like this so that it's running off. Some of that stain is coming off of where this clothespin one, because I didn't rinse it off well enough there. And I'm also just rinsing the back so you can see that. Do that until you don't see color coming off, and then immediately go ahead and rinse off your slide with your water right here. If you look closely at this, what you will see is your cells have picked up a little bit of stain there. Problem is that the gram-negative cells are colorless at the end of the decolorizer step. They don't contrast well with the background. So the end step here is to come in with another basic dye, in this case safranin. And we're going to flood our slide with safranin and let it sit for at least a minute to stain those clear cells. The cells that were stained purple in the beginning that retained the dye through the decolorizer step, they might pick up some of this pink, but you won't be able to see it because that purple is going to mask it. So again, at the very end of this process here, I'm going to pick up this slide so I don't get as much on my fingers, he says with a purple thumb, and then use this water to rinse off the extra safranin that did not have a chance, or to colorize those decolorized cells there. And so if we put this against our background, we can see my gram positive is purple, my gram negative is pink, and if I look at the stuff in the middle, from looking at it here, it looks like it's purple, but you can't trust when you see it with the naked eye. You definitely have to go with the microscope and visualize your cells. The other thing that you can do with this is you can get a little piece of bibulous paper that should be in your lab stuff, and you can use this kind of like you use your paper towel there. Just tear a page out from here and then just take this bibulous paper and fold it over and just blot your cells like that. Some of the extra stain came off of there, and so oftentimes what I will do is just put my slide down on my paper towel here and let it sit for a few minutes, and that'll give it a chance to dry off. You need to make sure that you get all of the liquid off of there, because remember, you're going to be adding some oil directly on top of this, so oil and water don't mix, and you're not going to get a good visualization of your cells because they'll be blurry. All right, so remember, plug in your scopes and turn on the light on the side here, and check to make sure that your iris diaphragm is set back to the lowest side over here, or the right where it says 10x, and get your slide up here on your stage so that it's actually in there. And remember, if you run into problems being able to focus, you can always draw a line with a Sharpie on top of your slide here and bring that into focus. But these guys have a lot of contrast, so you should be able to see the cells pretty well there. So we'll bring it into focus and take a look at what we see here.